Welcome back, everybody. I'm Artie Decker. This is PSN. We're going to take a look at week 6 as we get back into region play. And in a lot of instances, we're going to be settling some of these region races, and in others, some hopes are going to be dashed. But looking back at last week, just a very dominating performance by Spring Garden over a continuing to struggle Sandrock team. Easy win in that slot fest, and I believe Sandrock only had 33 total yards in that game. So, just you know, it's not getting a whole lot better for the Rock as the season goes on. Looking also at Crossville, we felt like might have a chance potentially to maybe make it a game, but wasn't to be on the road. 43-14, Springville takes them out. As we scroll on down, let's look at that Coosa and Victory game. I don't think a lot of people thought this game would be as close as it was, and nor did they think it would be a defensive struggle. But, definitely just did not live up to the expectation. But Coosa does get the win, but it's 10-7, and that's a big win going into this week for them. Looking on, Decatur bounces back in non-region play. Waterloo, first time, I believe, all season that somebody's held them under 30 points. And Lynn manages to do so, but just doesn't quite put up enough offense as Waterloo gets another big win going forward. Looking on, let's look at Alexandria. Nice, impressive win over Cleburne, who just really can't stop anybody, it seems, this season defensively. Looking on, let's look at the big rivalry matchup. We had this one wrong. We picked Boaz. We thought they could finally, get over the hump and knock off Del Pruitt and his Aggies, but they actually led in this game, I believe, into the third quarter. But finally, the Dindy kid had 349 yards and 5 touchdowns, and basically put the Aggies on his back as they prevent the upset in that one. The Hartselle Briarwood led it, it absolutely uh, met expectations. We knew this would be a really good game. It went into overtime, 7-7, and Hartselle sneaks out of there with a 14-7 win, like we had thought. Looking on, let's look at Sparkman just mowing over Buckhorn as they continue to struggle. Cedar Bluff, if you want to call it a rivalry game, maybe in distance only, just mow over Yellsville 55-0. Um, Cherokee County continues to struggle. Weaver rolls over them in an impressive win. Deshler, Colbert County, another rivalry game. Not very close. Deshler takes care of business in that one. Might say a lot about, we've heard a lot about Colbert County potentially being a dangerous team this year. That may say a lot about them. I thought they could maybe keep it closer than that, but unfortunately didn't. Um, we got Appalachian knocking off Cold Springs in the upset, um, getting their first win, to my knowledge. The battle of the losers, for lack of a better term, Douglas and Brindley Mountain. Douglas gets the win 37-6. Did not expect that kind of margin, so it just goes to show you Brindley is just really not very good at all. We talked about this matchup last week being a big game for the week, um, and it absolutely met those expectations as Etowah sneaks out of Fort Payne with a win. The defense really was the story, though. That Etowah defense, you got that secondary, Justin Harris, you got Graham rushing the quarterback. Just a nasty, nasty defense going forward for the Blue Devils. And also, on a side note, Trent Davis had 236 yards. Monster night for them, or for him, as the Blue Devils get the win in that one. Most Shoals hard fought win over a good Florence team. Um, Actually, I kind of thought Florence would probably sneak out of there with a win, so that's a big win for Most Shoals in that one. Five, we knew that would get ugly fast, and it absolutely led up to that. Um, Pleasant Valley just blowing out Gaston. No surprise there. This was a game we felt like would be, you know, really too close to call as Geraldine went on the road to Sardis. To my understanding, Sardis actually, scored late, had the extra point to tie, and actually missed the extra point, and Geraldine gets a big, big win in that one, having took just a beat down from the Sardis last year, something like 35-14. So that's a big, big win for Geraldine in that one. Looking forward, Hopes Bluff just mows over Glencoe in a rivalry game. No surprise there. McAdory, talked about them all season, just sneaking along, not really blowing anybody out, but just picking up wins as they go along as they beat a solid Greensboro team 10-0. Lynette, Hanley, um, Hanley's really improved. I felt like this game would be pretty close, and it absolutely was. And but Lynette maybe just a little too much talent for him as Christian Story and company do just enough to get by him in this one. Helena, Southside, good matchup as Helena finally gets their first win of the season, and Southside continues to struggle to score points. Bob Jones, nice win over Hillcrest Tuscaloosa. Um, Valley Head, struggles continue. Tinker and Company coming in there desperately needing a win, and they actually, get one this week, or excuse me, this last week, in I would imagine not a very close game, 47-23 win for the Hornets. This game was close, though. We knew it would be another too close to call rivalry game. Cleveland led the majority of this game, but to my understanding, Pennington kicked a field goal with 4 minutes to go, and then kicked a field goal as time expired and slipped by them as they prevent the, I guess you could call upset win in that one. Looking on that Luverne Brantley had coming off a loss to another 1A school, and we're looking to bounce back. But Luverne, very impressive so far this season, especially defensively. They sneaked by them a 21-17 win in that one. Madison County finally getting a win over a struggling New Hope. This was a game really kind of pinpointed. I felt like two really good teams. Reeltown had a chance to really show if they were for real or not, but Maplesville just kind of smacked them around in a 34-14 win in that one. This was one we told you. Mars Hill is a legit team. I can't stress that enough, as they almost knock off Brooks, uh, but fall just short in that one. Looking on, we knew the Lincoln Munford game. We actually picked Munford in a close one, but Lincoln actually sneaks out of there with the win in that one. Um, Ohatchee struggled in the first half, to my understanding, but managed to get it back on track. In the second half, came back and took care of Leeds in a little bit of a scare, I guess you could say, kind of game for them. This Aliceville Pickens County, we knew it would be a defensive battle, and it absolutely, uh, you know, was. Um, we knew Aliceville would probably sneak out of there, and it pretty much come out how we expected. A low scoring game, but Aliceville wins it in a close one. This was a game. A lot of people said we were crazy. A lot of people said, "Oh, you're picking Jacksonville. You're on the train, but you're going into Piedmont, or rather, playing Piedmont." But I had a feeling Jacksonville was going to come through. It was at home. They were playing really good. They're getting no respect. This was absolutely a measuring stick game for them to see if they truly were what they thought they were, and they deliver as they knock off Piedmont in that one. Headland finally stops the Cinderella run for Pike Road as they clip them 32-27. This was a game, looking at this section Pisgah game, Nikita Magnum brought up the point last week in his question to us. Uh, was this a hangover game for Pisgah? Could Pisgah get back on the winning track after finally losing to Boaz? And, he had a feeling that they couldn't, and he was absolutely right. As Coach Powell and company finally get something positive going post that Fife beatdown and get the win over Pisgah, and that is a huge win for section and kind of a really bad loss emotionally for Pisgah going forward as they try to jump into region play. Looking on, we have Faultville just mowing over Priceville. We knew this Sheffield Hubbard game would be great. Absolutely was. And Sheffield actually clips them, though, in a close one. Raglan rolls over West End. Another good win for them. That's back to back, if I my math's right on that. At least two of the last three. So Raglan kind of getting a little bit of confidence about them. And West End just continues to struggle. They did only give up 35 points, which I believe is the lowest total they've given up all season. So I guess if you want to really grasp at straws, there's your positive for the Patriots. Ramburn gets mowed over by Wadley. I did not expect this. We picked Ramburn in a close one, and Wadley actually just kind of takes care of business. So that's definitely got to be a very confident shaking loss for Ramburn. Westminster buzzsawed just continues to roll, beats down a good Randolph team, 48-0. Randolph County just takes care of business in their rivalry game. Uh, North Jackson, wow, did not see this coming. Not the margin of victory. I could see a 21-point win, but not a 53-point win. Just dominate Coach Jacobs and Scottsboro in this one. Looking on, let's look at that Aniana Susan Moore, another too close to call rivalry game kind of deal. Back and forth all night, but Aniana scores late and slips out of there with the win in that one as they continue to build a nice little season so far for them that I don't think a lot of people saw coming. Looking on, North Sand just takes care of business against a struggling Rams team, 44-15. T.R. Miller, we thought this would be a big game, statement game for them. They could knock off Hillcrest Evergreen. They actually pull it off, 14-0. So, Coach Etchers just, it seems like they're building week by week that confidence and getting the old T.R. Miller swag back, if you will, as the season goes on. Um, Thomasville just taking out some frustration on a struggling Leroy. Isabella coming off some nice wins. Thorsby brings them back down to earth, though, as they clip them 22-12 as Thorsby continues to win. Kind of a surprise this season. Um, Looking on, let's look at Vestavia just rolls over Shades Valley, another win for them. This was a pretty impressive win. Vinemont have been playing some pretty good ball, and Addison just kind of smacks them around 38-12. So that's pretty impressive for them. Um, Looking on, let's look at Brewer just takes care of business, blows them out. Wetumpka, same way, just takes them out. Winterboro takes a smacking from Vincent. So wrapping up last week, let's just quickly give out our team of the week. It was kind of a hard choice, not a whole lot of really, I guess you could say big blow or upset wins. So we're gonna go with Appalachian. I mean it's their first win ever. It was a rivalry game. Coach Springs has been playing pretty good ball. I mean, really the only game they had lost was to Aliceville, who kind of put it on them. But nevertheless, a lot of positivity going into that game. I really did not see that coming as Appalachian knocks them off 35-34. So congratulations to the Eagles for being our team of the week. And that pretty much wraps up last week. Let's get into the polls for this week. Um, Central Phoenix still holding strong at number one. In 7A, not a whole lot really changes. Spain Park actually gets a vote. I really don't understand that. They've still got them at roughly about 16 at 1 and 4. I don't understand where the vote come from on that one. Wetumpka still holding strong. Pinson just kind of might have picked up a vote there with 3 this week. Hartselle holding strong at 6 with their win. St. Paul's still barely in the polls. Muscle Shoals might have crept up a little bit. And McAdory actually appears this week at there at about 12. So finally, somebody recognizing the Yellow Jackets of McAdory being 6-0 besides myself. Um, Another deal, Opelika. I mean, I understand they played Murderers Row schedule so far. They're 1-4. They're probably not a 1-4 football team, but still get a vote from somebody. Viger, first time since '09 they've been ranked number one as they take that spot from Briarwood, who drops to 3. But still, some love for Briarwood because they lost a really good Hartsville team, and they do get 3 first place votes still. Etowah just holds strong at number 2. Mortimer Jordan, I believe, moves up to 8. Silicaga, I believe, slides back in at tied for 9th this week. Tallahassee sneaking up there at about 12. Boaz, even though they lost, still hanging around there at 14. So still hope for the Pirates to finally sneak on up in there. Alexandria, same way. Brewer, nobody really talks about them, but they've had a really impressive year so far at 4-1. Um, Looking on to 4A, UMS Wright still holding strong. Jacksonville moves up to number 3 this week. It's the highest they've ever been ranked in Class 4A, so congratulations to them after knocking off Piedmont. Um, as we talked about, Morris Hill almost knocks off Brooks, but Brooks manages to sneak out of there with a win. Just goes to show you the caliber of that Morris Hill team. North Jackson moves up to number 7 this week. American Christian with a nice win over Anniston State, or actually moves up to 6 this week. Looking on, let's look at Andalusia there at 12. Lincoln quietly at 4-1 there at 13. Randolph suffering their first loss last week actually makes the polls this week, even in the loss at about 16. Oneonta same way, all of a sudden on the radar at 4-1, roughly about 15. Looking on the 3A, Mobile Christian actually moves up to number 2 and gets 2 first place votes. Really don't understand that. Randolph at 4. Taylor Miller moves up to number 6 and gets a first place vote. So somebody is starting to see what I've been seeing all season as they get a vote this week. Thomasville still at about 8. Westminster, still no love. I mean, they have dominated everybody they put in front of them, but they still are at number 11. I don't understand that. Come on, voters. You can do better. Um, Geraldine getting a little love this week. Moves up to 14 all of a sudden. Weaver at 15. Um, Pike County quietly is at 4-1. Um, Looking on to 2A, a little surprising. Ohatchee, some of the votes have gone away. They don't have first place votes this week. Luverne actually gets 1 this week. Fife is almost unanimously number 1 all of a sudden. As Luverne, maybe people wanted more of an impressive win last week over Brantley, but wasn't to be. Thorsby at number 4, first time in school history they've been ranked this high. So congrats to them. Bluff continues to climb, even though they really haven't beaten anybody. I mean, let's just be honest with it, as they move up to number 5. Um, Reeltown drops 2 spots to 6 as they lost a really good Maplesville team. So I guess, uh, cut them a little bit of slack on that. Addison quietly at 5-1, moving up to 7, and I believe is a really good team and somebody you're going to have to watch as the season progresses. Cottage Hill Christian moves up to 8. First time in school history they've been number 8, and I believe ranked in general. Leroy just continues to slide at 8, or tied for 8 rather. Aliceville sneaks back up in the polls with a nice win over a good 1A school in Pickens County, being ranked as they go to 10. Ramburn slides to 12. Collinsville at 14. Collinsville's kind of getting the raw end of the deal. I mean, they played number 1 really tight for a long, long time, and still, for some reason, can't be ranked. I don't understand Lafayette continues to slide. They move to 15. Colbert County drops to 17. Um, Lynette still number one in 1A. Landon picking up a little steam. Got 3 first place votes. Maysville with that very impressive win stays at 3. South Lamar at 5. Faultville is now in there at number 9. Um, Pickens, even though they lost, still hanging in there at 10. Mars Hill, finally some love. Even though they lost, they are number 12 this week. Once again, come on, voters. Why can't you see that they need to be in the top 10? Um, Wadley, very impressive win, moves up to, we're going to call it 14. Isabella falls back to 15, but with no shame losing to a good 2A school in Thorsby. Um, Spring Garden finally getting a little love as they've quietly been 4-1 this season. Waterloo's another team nobody really talks about. They're finally getting a little love at 5-1. Marion County, nobody's talked about them. They get a vote this week at roughly about 19. Um, well, that pretty much gets us into one of our segments, being with our correspondents. Brock Bennett says, Artie, um, looking at last week's tough loss to Etowah, can Fort Payne bounce back and get a win this week against Lee in their homecoming game? To be honest with you, um, I think absolutely. Lee is not playing very good. It pretty much struggled all season, and Fort Payne was, I mean, they had no shame in the way they played last week against Etowah. I just felt like Etowah was the better team. It wasn't for lack of effort. So I would say yes to that. I think Fort Payne will get the win, and it potentially could be a blowout in that homecoming game for them. Looking on, we have Nikita Magnum. His question relates to Valley Head. He asked, Artie, do you believe Valley Head can somehow, some way, find some life and win a few of these last few games and maybe somehow, some way, sneak into that fourth spot of the playoffs? Well, to answer your question, Valley Head would have to totally change what they've done this whole season, and that's just plain struggle. I mean, it's just been so ugly. The games have not even been close. They've lost to some really, I mean, no disrespect to Gillsville, just not a very good football team. Um, they got Woodville this week. I guess there's an opportunity there if you really want to grasp at straws. But Woodville's played really well uh, at times this season, especially offensively with the quarterback. Defensively has kind of been their biggest problem. So I guess you could say, can Valley Head take advantage of that struggle on defense? That's going to be the big question. And can Valley Head execute enough to take advantage of that? And they really just have not shown that they can. I would say Woodville's going to win this game. It might not be a blowout, but I would say Woodville would win it. And Valley Head, I mean, just looking at the schedule, I don't know if they're going to win another game this season unless something drastically changes. But let's take a look this week. We got Mountain Brook going into Oak Mountain. Oak Mountain started out pretty strong, playing a tough schedule, losing some games, but playing really well in the process of doing so. Almost knocked off here at Trustful, I believe, week 3. But Mountain Brook, solid, playing, steady. I would have to say Mountain Brook will probably get them in this one because Oak Mountain looked terrible against Pelham this past week. Looking on, let's go with Luverne and Goshen. This is going to be an interesting game. Goshen at times has played pretty well, but over the last, I would say, 2 weeks, kind of struggled. And Luverne just not, they're not blowing anybody out. They're not really just impressing you, but they're just steadily taking care of business, getting wins. And I believe they're going to do it again in this region showdown. Appalachian, we talked about them. I actually misspoke earlier. I said it was their first ever win. I mean, if Coach Willingham heard me say that, he'd probably smack me. But nevertheless, I will retract that statement. I will say it's Appalachian's first win of the season this year of being 2018. And they roll into Raglan, who's really struggling early in the season, but they have won the last two. And I look for them to win three in a row and take out Appalachian in this one. Pickens County, South Lamar, great 1A matchup. You got Pickens County, I believe, number 10 versus number 5, South Lamar. Um, wow. Great matchup. Could be another defensive struggle, but I like South Lamar to sneak out of there with a win and pretty much take control of that region. Looking on, let's look at that Grissom Bob Jones game. Will be that's kind of an upset alert right there for me. Bob Jones, not very impressive at times this season. Grissom playing some pretty solid ball. Would not surprise me at all if Grissom didn't give them all they wanted and maybe sneak out of there with an upset win. But I would say Bob Jones will probably get out of there. Huntsville pulled the upset a few weeks ago against Sparkman, but it's Florence, and Florence, I believe, is going to take out some frustration after losing that game to most shows last week and probably going to take them out in blowout fashion. Clemens, steady as the season's going on. Seems like, they bring the same thing every week. Sometimes it's enough, sometimes it's not. I believe it's going to be enough this week as they go into Gaston City. Bart Sessions, the Titans, the struggle continues as the Jets get the win. Spain Park going into Thompson. Spain Park's not playing good at all, and Thompson's just Thompson. Look for Talia Tagovailoa to just have a monster game and get them the win in that one. Sparkman Austin, great matchup. Austin talked about all season. We talked about potentially falling off. They haven't blown nobody out, but they just keep finding ways to win. Sparkman, on the other hand, really the only hiccup was the Huntsville game. They're playing well. Um, I've got a feeling Sparkman might sneak out of there with an upset in this one. Looking on, Tuscaloosa County going into Hoover, that will probably get ugly fast. Abbottville, Hazel Green. This is an interesting game. A lot of people have picked Abbottville to win this game. I actually took Hazel Green in a semi upset in this one. Hazel Green's been playing pretty well, and Abbottville has really struggled. So I like Hazel Green to get the win in that one. Athens Coleman. Athens at times has looked really good, and at times not so good, and recently not so good. So I'm gonna go Coleman to sneak out of there with a win in that one. Looking on, let's look at that Decatur Muscle Shoals. Man, you talk about some physicality. These two teams will smack you in the mouth, but I like Muscle Shoals to get out of there with a win in that. Maybe a little closer than you think, though. Gardendale, they've had a lot of troubles defensively, and Bo Nix and company will not be the answer to that problem. I like Pennsylvania big in that one. Lee, as we talked about going into Fort Payne, we take Fort Payne in potentially a blowout. Looking on, let's look at Oxford going into Huffman. Huffman's had moments where they played pretty well this season, but I think Oxford just a little too strong for them in that one. Shades Valley really struggled this season. Clay Chalkville should mow over them at home. Big matchup. Number 10, St. Paul's rolls into number 3, Spanish Fort. Spanish Fort, this is our house. You come in here and take it if you really want to be the top dogs in 6A. That's basically the message being sent to the Saints of St. Paul. And St. Paul's saying, bring it. We're here. We're gonna try to dominate this division or this classification just like we have 5A. So this is gonna be one of those put up or shut up games. And St. Paul's take claim to 6A in this one. Wow, it's almost too close to call. I've got a feeling though that St. Paul's might find a way to win this ball game. Just bear with me. Looking on, let's look at Arab going into East Limestone. East Limestone's not a great team, but but they'll probably put it on A-Rab as they just really have just continued to struggle all season. Um, Brewer and Ardmore. Brewers should take care of business in that one. Um, and to be, just one of those games that Brewer just can't afford to lose, especially you want to keep the playoff hopes alive. And currently are in really good position to make the playoffs. Um, look for Briarwood to bounce back big in that one. This Central Clay County game going into Mortimer Jordan, this has potential to be a classic. Um, Mortimer Jordan pretty good at home. I'm gonna go Mortimer Jordan in a close one in that one. Crossville at Boaz. Boaz is gonna look to get back on track. Crossville's just looking for some life, and they won't find it in Mr. Collins and the Pirates as they will get back on track with a blowout win in this one. Looking on, let's look at Madison Academy going into Gunnersville. Gunnersville, this is a big region game for them. A lot of hope anew, I guess you could say, from getting those last two region wins. But I think that hope's going to get dashed as the Mustangs will come over there and get a win in this one and just continue to solidify their grip on that region. Madison County going into Scottsboro. Madison County finally getting a win, finally getting some positivity. And Scottsboro really struggling, but I do like Scottsboro to finally get it together and get a win in this one. Looking on, let's look at Sardis going into Alexandria. Uh, Alexandria's playing pretty well right now, and Sardis coming off that heartbreak loss to Geraldine. That does not bode well for them as they go into Death Valley, and I like the Valley Cubs to get the win in that one. Southside going into Douglas. Southside struggling to score some points. Could be the soup of the day going into Douglas as Douglas really struggles defensively. Look for Southside to go wild and get some points in this one. Let's look at Anniston going into Jacksonville. This might be a trap game. Just maybe. Jacksonville, big emotional win last week at home against Piedmont. Maybe a little drained, and they better be careful because Anniston is just talented enough to pull the upset. But I do like Jacksonville to win it, but maybe a lot closer than you think. Asheville going into Hopes Bluff. Hopes Bluff should take care of business. We still really don't know who Hopes Bluff is. I know I've said that many times, and I stand by that point. Um, big game, Deschler and Rogers. Uh, I'd probably go with Deschler in that one. Looking on, let's look at Fairview going in North Jackson. Look for Mr. Witherspoon to have a monster game and the Chiefs to roll in that one. Uh, looking on, let's look at great matchup here. You got Hillcrest Evergreen going to UMS Wright. Hillcrest Evergreen coming off a tough loss to T.R. Miller, and you know that was kind of a statement game for T.R. Miller. This is kind of a statement game for Hillcrest Evergreen because you got Evergreen, the defending 3A champ, rolling into the defending 4A champ in UMS Wright. So, I mean, this is a battle of the Titans, if you will. But UMS Wright, really, that defense is just nasty. And Hillcrest Evergreen has kind of struggled to score points this season. So I like UMS Wright to win it. And but keep in mind, Hillcrest Evergreen's got a pretty good defense, so it's going to be low scoring. But I like UMS Wright to get out of there with the big win. Um, this is a game a lot of people have talked about this week. Aniana going to Cherokee County. Cherokee County really struggling. Aniana, a lot of positivity going on with them. First time they have had this good a record in quite some time. Um, it's probably going to be closer than you think, but I like Aniana to get the win in that one. Randolph going in the DAR. Randolph looking to bounce back after that beatdown from Westminster last week, and I believe they'll do so at DAR. Looking on, let's look at 3A and let's look to This game kind of lost a little luster. But like Nikita said, maybe Pisgah was looking ahead and looked past a struggling section and looking at this matchup as they host Geraldine in a huge, huge region battle. Because if Pisgah could find some way to get out of there with a win, all of a sudden they're in first place pretty much in that region. But Geraldine's saying, no, this is our time. And I believe that's what they will show in this game. Is I think they're going to be a little too much for Pisgah, and they'll pull away late in a win and just continue to put their grip on that region title. Looking on, let's look at Glencoe, Pleasant Valley. A lot of people think this will be close. I personally don't. Pleasant Valley has really improved this season, and I think they'll show it in this one, and they will blow out a continuing to struggle Glencoe team. Mobile Christian going into TR Miller, great matchup. Two going into number six. Mobile Christian, I don't know if they're number two. I think they're a little overrated, and I think we're going to find that out. As I think TR Miller will knock off Evergreen last week and knock off Mobile Christian this week, and Coach Etridge will get his team inside the top five next week in the polls. You heard it here first. Looking on, let's look at the big matchup. Maybe the biggest matchup in the state. You can make that argument. Sacks. Everybody's talked about them. The Riders are in love with them. They're number one. Piedmont. We're talking about they're rebuilding, but somehow they just keep winning, and they're number three. So you got a 1 versus 3. Huge battle at the Field of Champions. A lot of people are picking Piedmont. They say it's at home. They say Sacks ain't ready for this moment. I say I don't think so. Sachs is so talented, and was a legit uh, contender last year in 4A. So that makes them a real contender in 3A, if not the best team in 3A. And honestly, you can make that argument at this point. Um, and I like them to win this game. This is a statement game for them. I don't know if they can blow them out, but I like Sachs to get the win and take control in this region de facto title game. Looking on, you got Susan Moore going to New Hope. Susan Moore just can't lose any focus this week, as they should take care of New Hope in that one. Sylvania, you're struggling. It just doesn't seem like it could get any worse for you at this point. But you finally have found a little bit of ray of light as you go to Brindley Mountain, who is just awful. So look for the Rams to get another win, and you know they're going to come few and far between. It looks like, so you better enjoy this week and getting the win in this one. Weaver going into Randolph County. This is a big, big battle. I mean, you could make an argument this is probably the second biggest game, especially in that area. Um, wow. I mean, Randolph County at times has looked very vulnerable, and Weaver is really playing well. It would not surprise me at all if Weaver didn't get the win, but I don't know. I cannot go against this Randolph County team. They play well at home, especially, and I like them to get the win in this one, but it's going to be a close one, and it's going to be a classic. Westminster going into Phil Campbell. It's going to be a long night for Phil Campbell. That buzzsaws are coming, and Westminster will roll over them in that one, staying undefeated. Addison going into Colbert County. This is a big battle because these two teams have aspirations of being a threat in 2A in the North, and we're going to find out who's the bigger threat. Addison going into Layton. Um, Colbert County, very disappointing loss last week. Addison really playing well. I would go with the Bulldogs on this one. I like Addison. I don't know if they'll blow them out, but it would not surprise me if they didn't win it in impressive fashion. Looking on, let's look at Cleveland going into Gaston. Cleveland, the heartbreak loss last week, should bounce back this week at the Ridge over Gaston. Collinsville going into Section. Section coming off the big win. Collinsville says, yeah, you might enjoy last week, but you're not going to enjoy this week. Look for Jones and company to come in there, slang it around, and show their dominance and get a win in this one. Looking on, let's look at Fife going into Sandrock. This is going to get ugly fast. Fife should roll. Anderson should get a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns as Sandrock will continue to struggle. Hatton going into Tanner. Hatton is playing pretty decent, and Tanner had the win over a struggling Tharptown, but it's a win nevertheless. So it's going to be interesting to see how that win affects them. Plus, having the week off last week, could be an upset. Tanner might could pull this one off. Just keep that in mind. Ider going into Asbury. Ider, got the nice little win over Valley Head. Look for them to do the same as they go to Asbury in this one. Big matchup. I mean, you could say this is kind of the potential coming out party for rather Cedar Bluff and 2A. North Sand playing really, really well going in there. This game last year went to overtime. Um, like I say, first real big test for Cedar Bluff as a 2A football team. I like North Sand to go in there and get a win. I don't think they'll blow them out, but I know a lot of people are picking Cedar Bluff, and I know technically it's an upset, so I guess we're going to go with the upset. We're going to say North Sand knocks off Cedar Bluff in this one and says welcome to 2A. Looking on, let's look at Thorsby and Reeltown. Great matchup, 4 versus 6. Reeltown's looking to bounce back, also take a stranglehold on that region. Going to be a great battle. It really, I think it'll be a classic low-scoring game. I would probably lean just a little bit toward Reeltown, though, to sneak out of there with a win in that one and pull off a technical upset in that. West End going into Wauhatchie. West End, you don't want to go by the creek banks. Wauhatchie's going to probably run it down their throat, score a lot of points, and it's going to be a long night for the Patriots. Westbrook going into Ranburne. Great matchup. Ranburne coming off the embarrassing loss to Wadley. Westbrook, last time they played, actually give Wauhatchie all they wanted. So I like Westbrook to go down there and pull off I guess, semi-upset in this one. Looking on, Brantley going into Elba. This could basically be Elba's first big test in 1A this season. And I would say I would probably give Brantley the edge in this one, in a close one. Big region battle. I mean, a lot to be played for. Coosa, Coach Woods and company go to Faultville, number 9 this week. Faultville has looked really, impressive on offense. Defense, not so much, especially against the pass. So it'll be interesting to see if Lipscomb and company can throw the ball enough successfully to expose that and take advantage of that, and somehow, some way, pull off an upset and get in it. It would be a huge win because all of a sudden we would have a 3-way tie in that region as to where, on Faultville's perspective, if they can take out Coosa by hook or by crook, all of a sudden Faultville is in the driver's seat to pretty much walk away with that region title. Looking on, Maplesville should roll in that one. Gillsville going into Hubbard. Hubbard, coming off that heartbreaking loss last week, should mow over Gillsville in this one. Looking on, let's look at Marcel going into Vina. Vina's a decent little team, but Marcel should mow over them and continue their dominance in that region. Looking on, let's look at Spring Garden going into Talladega County Central. A lot of people are giving Talladega a pretty good shot. I'm not necessarily on that thought process. I like Garden to win it in probably impressive fashion. Waterloo going into Cherokee. Cherokee's really struggled defensively, and Waterloo, of course, has just scored a lot of points. So look for Waterloo to get a big region win in that one. We got Winterburg going into Victory. Victory playing really well defensively, and Winterburg cannot score. So that's a bad combination. I would probably give Victory just a little bit of edge in that one and get a big region win. Woodville going to Valley Head. We already spoke about this. Valley Head just they look like they're on the side of the road dead, basically. If you were driving by them, they are really struggling. They have no life. They have no inspiration. And Woodville seems like they improve week by week. They're not great, but they're trying to just get wins wherever they can. And I believe they'll go into Valley Head and they'll get one this week. Looking on, let's look at that Jackson Thomasville is a really interesting battle. I mean, those two teams, if you're not familiar, are really close together. Um, you know, Jackson being a bigger school, I would probably give them the edge. And Thomasville, they're a good team, but I don't think they got enough. I like Jackson to get the win in this region battle, or excuse me, this rivalry battle. Pell City going into Etowah. Pell City's improved, but I don't think they've got what it takes to go into Etowah and get the win. I like Blue Devils in that one. That pretty much wraps us up. As I said, after this week, we'll know a whole lot more about our playoff picture. You'll have some teams that their region title hopes will fade. You'll have some teams that the hope of potentially sneaking in the playoffs will fade, and you'll have others who hope will spring eternal. But that wraps us up. I'm Artie Decker. This is PSN. Join us next week, and we'll break it down one more time. I'm saying, save me a spot by the fence, and I'll see you next week. God bless.